adoption of the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to address that.
What is being sought as it relates to additions, deletions, or agenda items? I don't know what the question is right now. In terms of what the point is.
Okay, go ahead.
Needs to
If
clarify.
you give me an opportunity to explain where I'm coming from. On March the 5th, the Union County Board of Commissioners, agenda item number 5, addressed the Town of Weddington Fire Service. They voted unanimously 5-0 to direct staff to work with the Fire Commission in providing information and obtaining public input regarding Weddington Fire Service. I would like to think that the Union County Board of Commissioners are a higher authority than a municipality. Subsequent to that, the chairman of the Union County Fire Commission met on March the 12th, and part of their agenda was to discuss a motion from the Board of Commissioners regarding the Town of Weddington Fire Service. And I'm sure you all picked up on Thursday of this week at 6:30 at the Weddington High School, the Union County Fire Commission is meeting to discuss fire service in the Town of Weddington and to gather public comment.
Okay. What's your
So, my clarification, Attorney Fox, is how can we vote on something when a higher authority in the county has directed the Fire Commission to gather information, and then perhaps maybe we can go through this exercise after the Fire Commission meets on Thursday?
Well, one, the county, like the town, is a political subdivision of the state. The county does not enjoy power over the city. So even though the county may have taken one position, it doesn't require adherence to by this body. The second issue is that you haven't gotten to a vote yet. You don't know if there is going to be a vote that's going to arise out of the meeting, so we don't have anything on the floor right now that pertains to a vote.
Anthony, can I ask you a question? Anthony, can Tim stay on our agenda legally?
10 is discussion.
That's a different question.
Yeah.
Hold on. We are
dealing with,
deletions.
the question was a point of order related to item number 7, which deals with additions, deletions, and adoption of the agenda. The point that's being made is an item on your agenda may require the proposition is we're going to require a vote, and that vote would be inconsistent with the county's direction. My point on that is the county doesn't have superiority over this board, so it doesn't dictate what this board can or cannot do. And secondly, as an agenda item, that item, I mean, the item is on as 10A, discussion and possible consideration. It doesn't say a vote. The way it reads, it is an appropriate item for this agenda unless the full body would like to remove it.
It's your legal opinion that item can stay on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Well, I move that we eliminate the word possible consideration.
No. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? I'd like to make one recommendation to council to delete number 11, new business, discuss and consider calling for a referendum regarding municipal fire service in Weddington. Do I have a motion? All those in favor? Well, now we're going to.
Do we have any discussion on this?
No, there's no discussion on addition and deletions to the agenda. Now, do we just vote on the agenda as amended?
You vote on the item to amend the agenda by deleting item number 11.
Okay. All those in favor of removing item number 11, say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
All those opposed, all right, it's 3-1. All right, all those in favor of adoption of the amended agenda, say aye.
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 Nay.
All right, 3-1. Next item is approval of the minutes. All those in favor of approving the minutes for March 8th, well, excuse me, I need a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Is it a motion for March 8th and March 23rd?
Let's do a combined motion.
So moved to combine that.
All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes of March 8th and March 23rd, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That was 4-0. All right, number 9, the consent agenda. Have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That's 4-0. Number 10 is old business. Discussion and possible consideration of the municipal fire service model in the town of Weddington. I will start by saying we talked about fire service for the past, well, since January, and obviously it was being talked about before then. The most recent action we took was to send out a letter to clarify a better description. And David, I appreciate your comments, and I do agree with you earlier, it would have been better. So we've got that out there as a description of what we're looking at. The map that we provided, I want to remind everybody that this map is a map to improve a situation, a response time situation, a financial situation. And the first action that this council took, and it wasn't this council, it was the prior council, was to ask the county commission to move these lines, to include Area 3 and Area 2 together. And that was given to the fire commission with no answer. I think a letter was sent also to the county commission from the town, never an answer. I think a timeline was given by one of the county commissioners a couple of meetings ago, and it was 13 or 14 months of just trying to get something done. And if anything, we've gotten some people's attention. Nothing was done. And we're looking at this municipal fire service model. And for those of you that believe the municipal fire service model is a good way to go, I wanted to tell you that it's not that easy. You just don't go and do it. And for those of you that think that we're going to do a municipal fire service model at any cost, unlimited cost, we're not going to do that either. We could do that. We're not going to. There are different levels that we're looking at, plans A, B, and C, and I'd like to try plan A, and it's cost effective, the service works, the lines, the map looks good, but it's still not easy to do. We've heard some concerns, get my notes here, about the cost, about the service level. Let me find my notes. So I know one specific person. This is not a municipal fire department. They're not town employees. We would simply take the role that the county has right now, be able to redraw the lines within the town of Weddington, contract with the fire departments to service the area. As you all know, the fire departments are independent entities. They're not government agencies. To me, they're more like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They can do what they want to do. And if they have a monopoly on the territory, you've got to deal with it. This is not unique to Weddington. It's not unique just to North Carolina. When I talk to people, this problem is in every community. And unfortunately, when you pick up the headlines, one of the outcomes you see pretty frequently is fire stations going out of business. So with my comments there, I'm going to open up and see what the other council members have to say at this point.
I'd like to address the council, Mayor.
Yes.
For those of you in the audience that are in the Wesley Chapel Fire District, my question is, are you happy with the Wesley Chapel Volunteer Fire Department and their medical and EMT service. This map over here shows that there are 38 EMT people either living in Weddington or on the outskirts of Weddington. If you look in the green area, there's no red circle. So one would have to surmise that at any one given time, there's only one EMT or possibly two EMT that are paid that are in a Providence Volunteer Fire Department. The Wesley Chapel Fire Department has said 3.1 cents per hundred. And we have not gotten a definite number, although you did a great job on that letter, Mr. Mayor. It's 2.2 cents to 5 cents to 5.2 cents. And my point is, you can take 3.1 cents to the bank. Now on January 9th, Mecklenburg County is proposing to establish 5 fire districts: Cornelius, Davidson, Charlotte, Huntersville, and Mint Hill. And the fire tax is going to run anywhere from 4.5 cents to 7 cents. And my question to you all is, are you willing to pay 7 cents a hundred for fire service when we have a fire department that covers 75% of Weddington that has said we'll cover it for 3.1 cents? In today's newspaper, the Charlotte Observer, under the local and state, they're going to have a hearing at the Government Center in Mecklenburg, and they're going to create 5 fire districts. The people who live in the individual districts would probably pay between 4.5 cents and 7 cents. That's a number. We still haven't received a number. It ranges from 2.2 cents to 4 cents to 5 cents. How can we vote on something that we don't know what the tax is going to be? In yesterday's Monroe Inquirer Journal, the Monroe Fire Department is going to reduce their budget by 17%. Now, Monroe has a population of 30,000. Weddington has a population of about 10,000. The budget this year for Monroe was $7 million. So if you want to do the math, the budget for Weddington would be $2.5 million. And for 2013, if they did reduce it by 17% in their proposed budget, it'd be $2 million. Are the people of Weddington ready to spend that kind of money for fire coverage? I don't think so. Let's talk about, there's been a lot of talk about response time. In the event of a structural fire, we all know that both departments are called. But let's just assume that Providence gets there first, because the fire may be closer to them. So they've got 3 people on duty. They get to the fire, and they can't go inside the house to save somebody, because the National Fire Association has a rule, 2 men in and 2 men out. So Providence has to wait for Wesley Chapel to come to the fire. That's in the case of a fire in a structure. Now let's talk about overall 2011, the total number of calls. Structural fires, medical calls, The response time for Providence was 8 minutes and 27 seconds. My question is this: if you're going to double the size of the Providence Volunteer Fire Department, what kind of response time are you going to have? It's not going to be 8 minutes and 27 seconds because you got to go a further distance to get there. Another point. Talking about the mayor's letter. It was based on a tax evaluation of $400,000. 43% of the houses in Weddington are over $400,000. So, were the numbers in that letter overly optimistic? It's going to cost a lot more because we've got more expensive houses in Weddington. What will it cost to run the fire department for a whole year? I'm looking at numbers here, close to $900,000. Paying Providence, Stallings, and Wesley Chapel. The town takes in $800,000, so is this a good way to go about it? I don't think so. And finally, we've got a fire department that's covering 75% of the town. It is the most cost-effective way. They have 38 EMT people at the ready. They have a model set up where they have daily coverage. They have EMT people living in Weddington. And it gets Weddington out of the funding emergency services business. And as I've stated before, if you want your taxes to go up to 7 cents a hundred or even 5 cents a hundred, then think twice. Because a merger is the most cost-effective way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to go next.
I would like to address volunteers and grants. I have gone to multiple fire companies, and every one of them have volunteers. I also want to say that when I look at how volunteers are recruited, and no offense to any fire chief that's in here, I really liked Waxhaw. I like the way they had a point system. I like the way they recruited their volunteers. But I also want to talk about 2 years ago, the Weddington Town Council had a presentation from the Council on Aging in Monroe. I was sitting in the audience and I was very interested in that presentation because it talked about 41% of Weddington is over the age of 60. 41%. Now there is a chief in here, and please don't laugh at me, but I have to get in his truck in plain clothes. And he did laugh when he saw me trying to climb in. I'm not as agile as I once was. So I did get into the truck, and I'm over the age of 60, but I also know that if you put all your fire clothes on me, I would probably be standing there going, brain to body, move, and not be able to do it. So let's talk about, Waxhaw has a mean average age of 32, Wesley Chapel has a mean age of 33, Stallings has a younger age where you can get volunteers. Look around. Look at the people in this room. How many of us over the age of 60 could don all the outfits and be effective? There are many people who are EMTs in every fire department. So to say that only 3 people show up is really a false statement. To say that people show up from Wesley Chapel, I got to see a schedule, and it was in November, and their driver was 80 years old. So I'm not sure how much he would do other than drive. I want to go on to grants. There are a lot of grants out there. A lot of grants that help firefighters. Apparatus, equipment, trucks. It's not easy to write a grant. I have now signed up to be on several of these websites and just got notice that there's a grant with $38 million that's up for grabs for the country, and you have 30 days to be able to write those grants. So there are grants out there that help every fire company. And I got to tell you, when I look at Beaver Lane and I look at their trucks, and most of those trucks were gotten by grants, we know that that can happen. It's not easy, but it can happen. So I want to clarify, we've got volunteers in all of the stations. I never heard from one fire chief that told me they didn't have volunteers. It doesn't mean they're all going to be at one given area. It doesn't mean they're all going to be on call. And we have to take that into consideration. But I don't want people to think that if you're in Providence Fire Company, you're only going to have 3 people showing up. That's not true. I think that every fire company makes an effort to have many people show up, whether it's fire or whether it is a medical.
Well, I was going to address the volunteer issue as well. I sat with Butch and Stephen, and I told them I thought their model worked wonderful because they are fortunate to have the volunteers that they have. Unfortunately for Weddington, our firemen can't afford to live here, which is a sad state of affairs, but it's the truth. So their model works well for them, but it doesn't work well for us, in my opinion. I'd also like to ask if you are aware that there are 2 lots, or tell me why. Tell me why there are 2 lots in Steeplechase, right behind us. If you go down the church lane, 2 lots in Steeplechase that are part of the Wesley Chapel Fire Department. 2 lots. They're paying 2.2 cents, and the other homes are paying 100. Wesley Chapel has to drive through Providence District to get to those 2 lots. The back end of Highgate is Wesley Chapel. Once again, Wesley Chapel has to come through Providence District to get to those homes. Those homes are paying $2.2, and the homes up front are paying $100 per household. So in other words, multi-million homes are paying $100, and a home worth half of that is paying almost twice that. That's not fair. There are also, and another thing I'd like to ask you to tell me about is the fire study suggested that the Providence area be expanded 1.5 miles in all directions from the station. And that was what, 2 years ago? It hasn't been done. So because of that, and not to Wesley Chapel's, I mean, it's not their fault. They can't get there soon enough. But they are called only for a medical call for homes that are a quarter of a mile away from Providence. That's not fair. The response times are not fair. The difference in the tax rates are not fair. We have gone from one step to another step, asking the county, the merger. We have gone through every step there is. And in my opinion, the best step for all the citizens of Weddington is to do a municipal fire service area, not a district. There seems to be some confusion on that. It's an area to where things do not change near as drastically as what I think some of you think some people do. And maybe you could tell them the difference.
The municipal fire service district cannot be created by the town. The county could authorize that. And what that would mean is you would actually have a fire tax within the town and a general tax, just like we have now. So this model simply says we are within 3 fire districts, the Stallings, Providence, and Wesley Chapel. And we would remove ourselves from those districts. We would apply to the Department of Insurance for a rating for the whole town. We would have a primary carrier. That primary carrier is a central location, looks to be Providence. And then we would contract in those areas with the other fire stations where we couldn't meet the 5-mile rule, or more preferably, we try to keep the houses that are closest to the fire station serviced by those fire stations. That's what this map was drawn up for. So that's the difference and the distinction in there. And I'll tell you one thing: there are no absolute statements in this process, because it is confusing. You've got tax districts, fee districts, insurance. There are a lot of rules the Department of Insurance has, and we've done everything we can to understand how to do this without jeopardizing insurance rates, keeping the taxes low, and just trying to simply do this map that we asked the county to do, about a year ago. So does that covers the...
Well, that and the fact that with a district, you actually set up a department to where you are paying the salaries, where you are responsible for the workman's comp. You're responsible for the 401s and what's the other one, Josh? With the district, you're responsible for
Personnel.
all the personnel.
We're not talking about that.
Well, but a lot of people think that we are.
I know,
and
but let's
I-
make it clear, that's
not what we're talking about.
Contracting.
But a lot of people seem to think that the costs are exorbitant because we're taking on that position. But it's quite different. It's a lot more simple with a municipal fire service area or model. Basically, the only difference is that the money would then go to the fire departments from the town of Weddington as opposed from the county. And you might be confused, Warner. We presently have a 3-cent tax for Weddington. That's what you pay for your personal property tax in Weddington. So when you're talking about a 5.2, that is the 3 cents that goes to Weddington, and the 2.2 that most of us are currently paying, because most of us are currently in the Wesley Chapel district. So we are paying a total between our Weddington and our fire, we're paying a total of 5.2, and that might actually, HARS go up to 6, because it would be 3 and 3. And I just want to, I want to read you here where the tax rates for our Fairview in Union County, Fairview, 4.76 cents. Hemby Bridge, 4.76. Indian Trail, 4.28. Lake Park, 4.76. Stallings, 4.28. Mineral Springs, 3. And we are the second highest income per capita in the county. And I did the math on my home today. if I went from 5.2 total, town and fire, from 5.2 to 6, and it would be $3.67 a month. $3.67 a month for it to go from 5.2 to 6.
I've already
Hold on.
commented.
Hold on. Warner. Are you finished?
Well, I just wanted to point out, when you look at it in realistic measures, and the majority of the people that came up here today were talking about cost, they were worried about cost, and I've said since last summer that we've been underpaying for our service. The fire departments have had to continue, and I've got chiefs here that can attest to it. They have been having to increase the type of apparatus that they have to cover the 10,000 three-story square foot homes that we're building in Weddington. They've had to get bigger trucks with taller ladders, and they've been having to spend all this money while we've been paying our little 2.2 cents. And when you look at the surrounding counties, if you look at across the state, then it makes you appreciate what you have and what good fire departments that we do have surrounding us. I just want you to take that into consideration.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Hold on. Let's have Danbury go
You should
next.
go.
Yeah, but I'm gonna let Danbury go next because he hasn't
That's
spoken
what
yet.
I'm yielding.
You don't have to yield because I'm giving him the time.
Okay. Good.
Walker and I spent a couple of days yelling at each other with a 12-key calculator as we ground on these numbers. And it was interesting to me as we put the impact of creating a fire service model together at the impact it would have on the budget. Because I believed that it was going to be much more substantial than it turned out to actually be. Just talking about the service area. Warner mentioned here just a minute ago a 3.1 tax rate and $2 million. Let me be clear. The town is not spending $2 million on fire service, nor, I don't know where the 3.1 cent tax rate is coming from. I asked to prepare a budget that included paying what I consider the worst case scenario, operating costs for the current fire delivery system based on the residents of Weddington. So that would be the $240-something thousand that Wesley Chapel taxes inside the city of Weddington, the compensation that Stallings receives from inside the city of Weddington, and Providence stipends plus their operating costs out of the city of Weddington. And when you added all that up, it was within $19,000 of 5.2 cents. The current property tax of 3 cents plus 2.2 cents, which was being charged to the clear majority of the households in the city of Weddington. I found that kind of interesting. Second thing that most of you in this room probably don't know, I found out over the weekend is, or actually last week and then into this weekend, is that Wesley Chapel is working on their budget right now at 2.4. In addition, has asked each municipality for $40,000 to supplement their budget. That's an additional $120,000 that will be added to their budget. So the cost on the Wesley Chapel side is going up and would be subsidized by Marvin, Wesley Chapel, and Weddington if we agreed to participate by another $120,000. By creating a municipal service district like we're talking about doing, we're allowing the citizens to make that determination. I'm going to ask a kind of robust question here. I want somebody to raise their hand. How many folks in this room showed up this year to elect the officers at their volunteer fire department? I see 1, 2. Now, 3. What happens is, in a volunteer fire department model, I want you to understand this, they take your money, they tax you, and then they deliver a service and buy equipment and property. But once they own that property, they don't turn it back over to you when they're done with it. There are restrictions on that property. It can only be used by other charities or fire companies. So we are giving the authority to somebody else to tax, to take your property, and then you have no recourse. And there are 3 people in this room that participated in that process. When we create a municipal fire district, you get to participate in that process every 2 years because the majority of this board is up for an election. And you will determine the fire service model in this town and what is going to be delivered and what the expectations are. We'll contract with the service providers. And the service providers are still Stallings, Wesley Chapel, and Providence Volunteer Fire Department, as long as they're within those 5-mile loops. And that's the big key to all of this. So, all that being said, I'm going to make a motion so we can then debate the motion. I've got the floor, excuse me, Warren. The town council moves forward, I'm going to make a motion that the town council move forward with the implementation of a municipal fire service model contingent on the following. The town has service contracts in place with the necessary fire service providers required to meet the 5-mile rule under the insurance requirements. In addition, number 2, the town attorney can verify that the automatic aid, we commonly call that mutual aid, portion of all of our Union County contracts is not voided by the implementation of the fire service model. Upon completion of these tasks, the town, Weddington, will then submit to Union County a joint resolution between the town of Weddington, Union County to withdraw the town of Weddington's consent to be included in its incorporated territory with the Providence, Stallings, and Wesley Chapel Volunteer Fire Department districts. What that says is they can no longer tax. We're going to be the taxing authority. Submit a resolution for approval of the municipal insurance district boundaries to the Department of Insurance. So what we're saying in this motion is we're going to vote to move to the next step. And the next step is to reach agreement with our service providers, make sure that the mutual aid portion of those service providers is not violated, get the North Carolina Department of Insurance consent, and then make sure that under the current agreements we have with the service providers, we will then be the taxing authority rather than the individual fire service providers. Mr. Mayor, that's my motion.
Point of order. Mr. Fox, I thought we were in the discussion phase of this agenda item, and the discussion phase had not ended, and the Mayor Pro Tem has made a motion.
Well, we are in the discussion phase. We're on the agenda item. The agenda item includes both discussion and consideration. And a member of this body can put a motion on the floor at any time. And you certainly have the ability to have discussion of the motion, but there's nothing that prohibits the person from putting a motion.
I'd like to discuss Mayor Pro Tem Berry's motion.
Sure.
With all due respect to Councilwoman Hadley, Henry Bridge has a 0 property tax rate. She used 4.6 cents, which is the fire tax in Henry Bridge. So that gives you some idea of what we're talking about.
I was talking about fire tax, sir.
I have the floor, Mayor.
Still talking about fire tax.
You pointed out the fact that in the subdivision of Highgate, one of the people paid $100 and the other paid 2.2 cents. But as far as I know, everybody's happy with their fire service. That's exactly why we should merge and have 3.1 cents for the entire town. And I want to make it clear, I am aware that we have a 3-cent property tax. What I'm talking about is beyond the 3 cents. If it takes 4.6 cents in Helmby Bridge, the people of Weddington are going to be paying 7.6 cents. You add the property tax to the fire tax. I'm sorry, it's expensive. And finally, the numbers that the mayor put together only cover the operating cost, as I've said in the past. There's nothing been said about the capital improvements. Providence has said it's going to cost them $1 million to renovate their firehouse. And their possible replacement of a fire truck in 2014 for $400,000. They're not telling you that. And they should be telling the citizens of Weddington that it's not 5.2 cents or whatever the number is. It's a 3-cent property tax and either a 4.5-cent fire tax or 7-cent fire tax. And ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be paying a whole lot more tax. And you don't have to do that if these two departments merged, and you would be paying 3.1 cents.
Mr. Mayor? You're saying that the merged fire company is going to charge a fire tax of 3.1 cents?
Correct. On top of the 3 cents?
On top of the 3 cents. So a merged fire company is going to cost 6.1. A municipal fire district is going to cost, based on my numbers, 5.2. Now, as to his comment about capital, he is absolutely correct. Wesley Chapel built a new fire station. That station is going to have to be paid for. If the number is right, they are already increasing their tax rate to 2.4 this year, and that number will continue to go up as the operating cost for having a building of that size comes online. It just is a matter of fact. I mean, you put a new building up, it costs you more to operate the building. I had a conversation with Jack Parks. It's not in evidence, but I'll just share it with you. The problem, the Providence file, it is in evidence. If we go back and look at the minutes, Jack, a year ago when they showed up at the door because they needed to renovate the building, the reason they were coming into Weddington was they didn't have the revenue that they could borrow against to do it themselves. Well, when they enter into a contract with the town of Weddington that we're going to be paying them for their service, which is more than $100 per house, so we're actually going to pay them for the service they're providing, they'll have a revenue stream that they then can borrow against, take to the bank, and say, okay, just like the Wesley Chapel Volunteer Fire Department did when it built its building, we need to renovate, and it's going to cost us whatever that number is to cost, and they come back. By the way, if their service costs go up, and they come back to us next year and they say it's not going to be whatever $100,000, it's going to be $120 because they renovated the building, don't fool yourself. Wesley Chapel's price is going to go up too, because all of this structure, this equipment, the cost is going up. We have underpaid in Western Union County for fire service for years. The admission has to be out there. What we're trying to do is have elected officials regularly make that decision, and you get to go to the ballot box and make that decision. That's what this is about.
What about the reevaluation?
We'll let somebody else talk.
That's a good question.
Another point that we haven't taken into consideration, we're working all these numbers based on, in Western Union County, we all know that our properties are probably assessed at a value that we couldn't sell the houses for what it's assessed at.
Hold on, because he actually knows that number, because he did the study. How much are we overvalued right now?
I would estimate that we're sending over $600,000 down to Monroe.
In property tax.
Each year in property taxes to Union County.
Which means our property generally is overvalued by 20%?
It's over 20 probably.
So when the reevaluation takes place, the numbers that they're trying to generate in order to cover the municipal fire service area, those numbers are going to go down. But the costs are still going to be there.
But the check's still going to be the same.
Assuming they go lower
valuation goes down 20%, you raise tax rate 20%, it's a
He's
net.
assuming they're gonna lower the valuation. I don't think that's gonna happen.
But I'm just, my point is that if they do a reval, and they'll have to do a reval in 2016. If you go look at the check you're going to write, and we will adjust the rate accordingly. If you're paying 120 bucks, guess what you're going to be paying? 120 bucks.
Politicians. Can't get rid of it.
Now, the nice thing about it is, if they do a reval, we'll be sending less money down to Monroe.
As a percentage of the rest of the county.
Which is why we passed a resolution encouraging the county to do a reval in 2013. All right, there is a motion on the floor. Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion on the floor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay?
All right, passes 3-1. Next item, number 12, update from town planner.